Now we're going to talk about the shoulder joint, but especially how the shoulder joint relates to the chest. This is very important and really exciting. So one interesting thing about dealing with the clavicle and the whole thoracic cage is that you have respiration. So the innate mobilization where we're asking the patient to move is not needed with this area because we just use the breath. So it makes it very easy. There's already an innate force. So the clavicle can go medially, laterally. It can go anterior and posterior. It can rotate either way, and it can go up and down. So we can say it goes in, out, side to side, up and down, rotate, rotate. We're basically going to go through all those ranges of motion of the clavicle and then how it meets the sternum. I think you're going to find this very exciting for straightening out the entire thoracic cage. So the simple way to remember how the clavicle moves is it goes up, down, in, out, rotate to one side, rotate the other side, and it goes forward and back. So up, down, in, out, rotate, rotate, forward and back. That's all the motions of the clavicle. So very simply, when you move the clavicle superiorly, you just basically take your thumb, both thumbs, and you gently push it superiorward, very gently. When you want to pull it down, you just grab the clavicle like you're doing a pull-up on it and move it inferiorly. When you want to move it laterally, you grab where the clavicle meets the sternum and just move it laterally. When you want to move it medially, you basically use this as a contact point, this curve in the clavicle, and you push it medially, or you can move it, you can grab it and move it forward and backward, or anterior and posterior. When you have a high clavicle like this, or an anterior clavicle, that usually means that the sternum is also rotated that way. So the clavicle is a connection to the sternum and to the thorax. So the same thing is done here, where you put your hand on the sternum and you rotate to the right and to the left, and of course it more easily moves to the left because that's the lower side. So I hold it going to the right, and then as she breathes, I will find that a little bit of pressure will change the rotation of that sternum and make it so it's much more balanced with the ribs. And that's how you balance your clavicle to the sternum. So now we're going to deal with the other end of the clavicle, which is the AC joint, the acromion process of the scapula, A, and the clavicle, AC joint. And what very often happens is that this joint becomes stuck. It's often elevated on the stuck side, and it's also quite sore. And so now we're going to mobilize this joint just by putting my index contact right on that joint as I elevate the arm. So now we're going to mobilize the AC joint. So now we're going to mobilize the AC joint. So I grab her wrist or elbow, and I flex the glenohumeral joint, flex the arm, and it stops right where there's a jamming or a fixation. So I hold that joint, the AC joint, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is gently lift your arm up and back. There you go. And then relax. There we go. And then again, now push the elbow kind of up and down toward the table. Down toward the, there you go. And then relax. Great. And then down toward the table. Great. There we go. And now that's mobilized. That's all it takes to loosen up a very tight AC joint.